Yeah! Welcome back to Calling All Beings. We said we were going to do it. We done did it. We brought y'all a Bigfoot Roundtable with some serious, original gangsters in here. You're about to meet all of them. Before we do that, let me say good evening to my co-conspirator, Money Nathan. Oh, there he is. Minnesota's. Oh! So, before we do that, though, Money Nathan, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, man. It's good to be with you on this Tuesday evening. I'm excited for our first ever Bigfoot Roundtable, and it won't be our last one either. I think this is going to be a really good one, though. We're going to set the bar high tonight. I got a good feeling about it.
Yeah, this was your idea. Thankfully, you came up with the idea. And before we even go any further in the show, I'd like to say that we're blessed that the Bigfoot community has embraced us. And we've only been in, as a group, been in this for maybe a year. And the way that you guys have agreed to come on, to share your knowledge, to edify us on the topic, including phone calls and everything, we really do appreciate it. It's not something that we overlook. Debs. So Debs, I want to say this while the whole group is here, because Deb has just started a new show called Anomalous Debates, and her and her PH candidate co-host are going to be doing Lincoln Douglas style debates, where everybody is welcome from each community, whether UAPs or Bigfoot or paranormal. So if you want to debate someone in that sort of format with the time limits and so forth, please reach out to a study of UAPs on Twitter, and she'll get you hooked up. How are you, ma'am?
I think that it'll be an exciting year if we can get some interesting conversations going, and it's already been an interesting year, isn't it? Yes.
It's a brilliant idea. It really is. I mean, I don't know if you guys may want to comment after, but I didn't know if we would see something like this. We see arguing, we see fighting, but she's doing it, I mean, in a very calm format. You could watch the first episode they just did over the weekend. It's on the Calling All Beings Network. So Nathan, let's bring everybody in. You ready? All right. So in alphabetical order, we're going to go. She is the founder of Project Zoobook. She's part of the Olympic Project. She's been a BR investigator. Let's see. She was Researcher of the Year a couple of times. She's from Ohio, Northeast Ohio. I'm only sorry that I didn't get to meet her when I lived there. And man, just to chat with her on Facebook, and you're going to be like, you're going to think the same thing you're thinking about Sybilla. What a wonderful human being. So party people, put those hands together for Amy Boo.
Yay!
Thank you.
Yes. And now this gentleman right here, if you've been in the topic for anything more than 10 minutes and you don't know this gentleman, you better check yourself, Nathan. Okay. Right. We're talking about the producer. He said, oh, there's no such thing. Way to go. I'll be right back. Okay. I'm going to get you a giant squid. I'm going to get you inside a beaver den, which, by the way, I got to hook up with Doug to get the video for that, because I really want to see that. Still fascinated. He was the producer of Monster Quest, among other shows on National Geographic. He's an OG in the community. Everybody knows him. They want to know if they got something real. They send it to this man right here. Put your hands together for Doug Hajicek. All right. Yes.
That's amazing, DJ.
What's that?
How does he do it?
I only do these shows because of DJ's introductions, Doug.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I thought Brian liked
amazing.
I really did.
I can just leave now.
Hell no, Doug. We want to get in. We want to get your brain. Everybody's here because we knew that you would have really interesting thoughts and diverse perspectives, and that's really what the community needs to hear, right? This other young lady has done research all over the South, Texas. She's even someone bought her property and said, hey, do you mind staying here and find out what's going on with Bigfoot on my property? And she's like, oh, yeah, I'm up for that. And by the way, I'll go out and camp in the woods with my truck for a few months. No fear, no problem. She is a Bigfoot artist, investigator, and just overall bright light that we just love. And that is, of course, Miss Sybilla Irwin.
Thank you.
Yes. So
Thank you for inviting me.
oh, it's a pleasure to have you. Thank you for taking us up on this offer and educating this bunch of green rookies. Next is the host of Sasquatch Odyssey podcast. I heard, because I interviewed this guy Harley this week, who said this gentleman's going to England to speak about Bigfoot. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, I will be over there in July the 20th.
We'll get into. I want to find out where and all that, because we have a ton of British friends. Nathan and I both been over there quite a bit. But he is also the president of Paranormal World Productions. He has he also has a true crime podcast. You just started a new podcast as well with another gentleman and a young lady. What's the name of that one?
There's a reason that my name says host of too many podcasts, because it's hard for me to keep them all straight. There's Backwoods Horror Stories that we just started. There's Bigfoot podcast with Wayne and I, my co-host over there. It's not encounters based. It's more of a conversational kind of thing. We kind of talk about things that piss us off in Bigfoot sometimes. So it's definitely a different show. It's catching on quite rapidly. People seem to be enjoying that format. So it's one of my favorite things to do. It's more conversational based. So. But yeah,
I got news for you, Brian. Everything you do is catching on, because everybody just wants you to come and speak. So that is, of course, the retired Atlanta police officer who joined us for a law enforcement specific paranormal Bigfoot and UAP podcast, Brian King Sharp. Put those hands together now. North Carolina and Georgia's own.
Oh, by the way, DJ, he's got a new book out. You didn't even mention that.
Thank you. Oh,
he's now an author too.
Hanger One Publishing. And so, yeah, please send me at the conclusion of the show. We'll delay putting the episode out. Just put us in the chat or on email, or actually, since we all have email, all the links of everything, and everything we'll get in the show notes before I put the episode out. What's the name of your book, Brian? Because that just released, right?
Sasquatch Unleashed, the Truth Behind the Legend. Yeah, the pre-sale's going on now. The book will actually be out closer to the end of February for everybody, but you can get it on pre-sale now. Head over to hangar1publishing.com and you'll see it right there. So shameless book plug over. I appreciate it.
No, congratulations. And Deb just started writing a book, and I believe, I don't know, Nathan, are you willing to say that you're right?
It's here. It's mostly here right now. So
okay. We don't want to talk about the one because everybody's gonna crack up, but it's awesome. So now that we've taken care of Mr. Sharp, let's take care of my man, my hometown homie, who said, let's get some data in here. All right, let's get some data so we can analyze, so we look like we know what we talk about. And that, of course, is the hometown homie, the impresario of the Bigfoot Mapping Project. Party people, put those together for Scott Tompkins.
Woohoo, data! Woohoo!
Welcome, Scott.
Happy to be here. Thank you. Good introduction. I don't think you can top that. I'm in Doug's boat, right? I can just leave now.
Yeah,
you know what,
Scott, we're out of here.
It's just that's how excited it is. It is such an honor when people will come on to both be asked to be on a podcast, and when someone is willing to come on and share their time with you. I just went on Doug's show with he and his son. I was so nervous, man. I was like pinching myself. It was crazy. So anyway, so here's what's going to, and Julie in the chat. Good evening, Julie. Mick, who else do we have here? Miss Mims. I might have to get my glasses over. Mythical Legends podcast and expedition.
That's Daniel, who we were talking about over in the UK.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, it's Daniel's event that I'll be speaking at. So far, he's announced I will be there in person. Dr. Jeff Meldrum's going to be doing a live virtual talk for about an hour during the event as well. And he's got other guests that he's got lined up. He'll be releasing over the next couple of weeks. So,
and Harley will be there, I believe, in person as well. from I think he's in Virginia now, but he's a Kentuckian.
So, allegedly, that may or may not have been released. So,
okay, all right. Well, he said it on. I think he said it on the show. Anyway, Pam Esper from how are you, ma'am? Pam is from the Bigfoot world, the Central Florida Bigfoot investigators. They do Ocala. So it's nice to see you here, ma'am. And now, so what's going to happen is basically we're going to go in a circular format. We may as well stay with the last name convention, Nathan.
Sure.
With the with Amy going first, and then we'll just go Doug and etc., and then Brian, Sybilla, and then Scott. So what's going to happen is everybody will present their topic, whether it be in the form of a statement or question, and then all the other panelists will get a chance to react to that, and then you guys can have some free play at the end and just converse, because I know you're all have enormous regard for one another. So, Amy Boo, are you ready, my friend?
I am ready.
All right, there she here she goes. She's going up. Yeah. So go ahead with your topic or question, ma'am.
Okay. This is something we were just talking about on a Project Zoo Book chat recently. And we were talking about if Sasquatch, Bigfoot, the skunk ape, whatever you want to call them, if they are flesh and blood creatures, how would they adapt to the different climates that are presented all across the United States? Because we know that, and Canada, we know that people are seeing them all over the place. How would they thermoregulate if it was 120 degrees in Texas? We were just talking about Texas and the nice weather there. How would they thermoregulate if they were, up in the snows in Alaska? Something just kind of fun to think about. A lot of animals have to deal with this, and wondered if anybody had any ideas.
So Burlington Code Factory, not a player,
right?
As far as it's concerned. Okay.
You never know.
All right. So from alphabetical, this will go to Doug.
Yeah, I want to know. And everybody I talk to has a different answer. I want to get everybody's opinion on whether these creatures do any form of migration, or is it specifically geographic migration where they only migrate in certain areas, or is there just no migration? The other question I'd like to pose, I don't think I get two, but I'm going to throw another one out.
Doug, you get two, but here's the thing: you have to do. We're all going to do Amy's question, then we're going to go to yours.
Gotcha.
So okay.
I don't know how this works. I'm just gonna state whatever.
Yeah, thermoregulating. Yeah.
I wonder what people think about Bigfoots living on the edge of humanity. Is that kind of their main hangout? And that's it.
Amy, we'll come back to your question. Let's go with Doug's. All right.
Was I supposed to answer her question?
Yes. What happens is Amy will present her question.
All right.
All of you get to answer that question, and then you go, and everyone gets to answer your question.
But DJ, you got to realize who you're dealing with here. You're dealing with somebody who's. I left my cell phone at home when I left today. I did all sorts of. I tried to eat cereal with a fork. So. Anyhow.
You're in good company, my friend. I am the same type of dude.
Anyhow, I don't even. Oh, how did they thermal regulate?
Yes.
All right. Well, I would imagine that if there is any type of thermal regulating, they're doing it through some form of stupor, like bears do. Bears will take and pump the blood from their extremities into their core, so they can either cool or they can stay warm. And I would imagine that's the only way that it's done with big mammals. So my guess that there would have to be some form, and I don't mean hibernation, but a form of stupor. It's really hot. They crawl into a cool area. Their blood pumps from their extremities into their core, and therefore they can regulate their temperature. So that would be my guess. That would be the best guess I can come up with.
That is Nathan. I feel like we got to write Doug a check after that answer. That was really
already in the mail. It's already in the mail. Got it.
Okay. All right, Miss Sybilla. or no, Mr. Let me see.
So
Yeah,
DJ, since I start, why don't you have people state their question and then answer then have them answer the one before it.
Amy's goes all the way around. Then we'll get to yours, Mr. Hajicek.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So who do we go with next? Is it Miss Irwin, right? Okay. Yeah.
I've often thought of that question because we get such incredible temperatures here in South Texas where they have been seen. So it's a question I've pondered, so often, and I wonder if they sweat, like a horse will sweat. We sweat obviously to cool ourselves down, and I wonder if like if you think of the Pacific Northwest, like maybe the thickness of the hair they have here, as opposed to maybe because I have worked with some individuals who have actually seen Sasquatches with very thin hair, but they've seen a lot of skin. So maybe their coats, they don't have as much hair down here. And I think that maybe that's why they're also seen quite often by water sources. Like maybe they cool off just like we do in the water and stuff like that. That's the way I would think that they do it.
That's another great answer. Brian.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Doug and Sybilla. I think the opposite is true for me. I have always wondered more about the colder temperatures because they're seen so farther north. And as far as I know, I may have heard one story that I've collected over the years that suggested that they may have some sort of fire usage, but other than that, there's really not a whole lot of ways to stay warm. So that's one of the things that has always fascinated me when you talk about you're getting up into Canada, Alaska, and those areas where these things are seen. How do they stay warm during those extremely cold months? Because if you take a lowland gorilla, for example, and take them out and drop them into Alaska, they're not going to be able to survive. It's just that simple. So these things have to be able to do something very similar to what Doug was talking about, possibly to regulate their body temperature in some way. I don't necessarily think they hibernate, but I think they could very much slow down their metabolism, possibly in some way, to survive in those colder temperatures. And very much like Sybilla said and Doug said about regulating in the heat, I think, sweat is a good question. Do they do that? How do they do that? And using water sources to stay warm, I think would make the most sense to me. I know our creek is always freezing on our property, no matter what month of the year it is. And if I've been out there and got in it myself to cool down in the heat of the summer when I'm working outside. So fascinating question though.
Yeah. That is a great question. I'm also thinking their hunting habits must change, during the summer when they're, the energy, the amount of energy they want to expend. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Amy. Do you have something?
Somebody else said something.
Oh, okay.
I was, even here in Texas where the temperatures get so high, there's rivers that are springs and they stay really, really cool, like all throughout the entire summer. So I could see them using that for sure. And caves.
Yeah.
We have caves here too.
The other thing is nobody says Texas as cool as people from Texas. Like the way you guys say the word is just so cool. So I wish I could learn how to do it. It's rolled off the tongue. Anyway, let's go with I think Scott is next, right? Scott.
Yeah, I'm going to break out an SAT word here. I think it's an ecogeographical rule. And Amy, they might have brought it up in the call, but it's Bergman's rule. And what that is it's basically larger body size in colder climates. Because a larger body size allows those bigger animals, like polar bears is a good example compared to black bears, to retain their body heat. So I think in colder climates, Bergman's rule could come into effect where the Bigfoot or Sasquatch have a larger body size on average than perhaps Bigfoot or similar species in warmer climates. I think that's it's an established biological rule, and I think that it probably does apply. I think it's pretty logical. However, I say that, and I know there's a lot of reports in my database that say there's 8-foot Bigfoots in Texas. So
that's true.
It's the first thing that jumped to mind though when you talk about temperature and regulating body temperature and surviving cold climates.
And we have the ladies from Florida in there. We have Kathy, who is the leader of that group. There it is, Bigfoot World Cryptids and Paranormal. And Pam, I'm curious what sizes they've seen, and maybe you guys can throw that in the chat. But yeah, that is a great question, and yeah, we need to Zell. It's got some money for that answer. It was really good. All right, now it is. Nathan, did you and Debs have anything you wanted to comment on that, or?
I do have something. If you, yeah, just
ma'am.
real quick. I've been reading about tardigrades and or water bears, and it's fascinating what they do. They regulate by eliminating water in their bodies and dehydrating themselves, and then rehydrating. So when you hear about things like that, and you're talking about an animal that hasn't been examined, at least not publicly known about, right? There's always a chance that there's something way out there in left field that we haven't thought of. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
That's awesome.
Nice. All I can think about, well, just a couple of things, and one is something to do that I recall thinking or reading about humans and like the size of our brains and how energy regulation and temperature regulation is so important to maintain optimum temperature for the brain tissue. So we think about Bigfoot and how high the head might be, and what's the size of their cranial mass. I think about the temperature regulation there, and then I also think about their habitat. We don't I haven't heard a lot of accounts of them having dens or living in caves, but typically if you had a habitat like that, you might have a way to better regulate temperature, because in a cave the temperature is generally about the same throughout the year if you go kind of deep enough inside of that. So really, really interesting to think about.
That's a good one. We got to get Will Lunsford on here from Arkansas, Bigfoot investigator, talk about some caves and Ozark stuff. That would be awesome. So Doug, it's your turn, sir. Your question.
Yeah. I was going to answer another point to Amy's question. One thing that people don't realize is that throughout the northern latitudes, there are peat bogs. These peat bogs get very, very warm in the winter. I mean, they're warm all year, but they're extremely warm in the winter. And we've done some studies in peat bogs and, putting up camera traps. And I don't want to get into a long story, but there has been some evidence presented to us that there were Bigfoots in the areas right in the middle of a warm peat bog up in northern Minnesota. And so that could be another way in the winter time that they seek more moderate temperatures by just taking up, residence in a peat bog over the winter.
It's like snow monkeys going in the hot springs.
Yeah. It's the decaying vegetation that causes all this heat, and it's decaying sometimes 30, 40, 50 feet down, and it just produces a hell of a lot of heat. So
that would be an interesting. It seems like they would want to bed down there, for the night. I'm curious, and also I'm sure Amy can get into later on, maybe get into the bedding a little bit that she's seen, and if there's any sort of a covering, because they found the beds, but I was curious if they've created any sort of a cover. I don't know. Do you have anything on that, Amy, real quick before we go to?
Not. If you're talking about the nests with the Olympic project, they don't really have a covering except for the trees, the canopy above them, which is one of the biggest reasons why I don't think it's people making them. Because if it was, people right away started asking, why couldn't it be a person, a hermit out there or something like that. I don't want to get into that too much, but there's a lot of reasons why I don't think it's people. But one of them is because there's no really good covering to protect a human being.
Yeah, it's not how we would construct a shelter that many feet thick, but nothing to cover you from the elements, right? So, Doug, did you want to go with your once again present your question, please?
No, I still want to talk about Amy's question.
Oh, please go ahead.
Can I ask you why I asked?
It's a good question.
Why I asked it?
It's a great question.
Yeah, please.
Well, the big reason, besides the fact that we were talking about it with some of the Project Zoo book scientists, I had been reading about how some primates, when it gets too hot out, they will pant to let off some of that heat. And so I was trying to match that up with any kind of Bigfoot reports where there was that kind of behavior. And I specifically wanted to ask Scott. I was going to see if you said anything on your own, but have you ever heard anything like that? Just curious.
I haven't
I
read
have not.
any. Neither have I, actually. I haven't read anything in the reports that have come in, and even in I just digitized and plotted John Green's historical database, and I read through a lot of almost all those reports as well. I didn't see anything about panting. Now that you bring it up,
I've heard of like them breathing strange, or I've heard of them opening their mouths. So now I'm curious, like, could that be panting? I don't know. I don't want to read into it or make something up if it's not there. Just wondered about that.
Yeah, I think that mouth breathing is a way to. I think the Tibetans do that with. They say if you breathe through your nose, you'll build up more interior heat. For like they'll sit outside and wet those red robes, and they'll dry them just with their breathing. And it's a lot of nose inhale and exhale through the nose. Whereas if you're trying to cool off, you use your mouth like a dog does, or like we've just talked about that some of the primates do. So.
Well, I was going to mention, I don't have as much concern of them cooling off because these creatures are never seen far from water. Never. It's just almost 99% chance they're going to be within yards of water. So they can use water to cool off. And then when you're hot, you just go inactive, you find shade, and pretty much can, get by, even on the hottest days if you're resting. But in the wintertime, it's another story. Another way that an animal like a Bigfoot could keep warm in the winter, besides peat bogs, is literally just covering themselves with snow. Snow is 98% air. It's a great insulator and will preserve a lot of the body heat. So just by them raking snow over their body, they're going to be quite comfortable. I suggest anybody get a chance to try it. Put a foot of snow over your body and you're really quite warm.
And I really think, like Sybilla said, that probably the hair, fur, whatever it is, would change depending on the climate too.
Yeah,
I would think. So I love that you mentioned that, Sybilla. Okay, next question.
Next question. Go ahead, Hajicek.
I already gave my question.
Okay, do it again.
Do it again. Let's see if I can remember. I am, always debating with people and never seem to get any kind of consistent answer. And that is, do they migrate to get into more comfortable, temperature zones? Do they only migrate, maybe from Minnesota, the ones in the Midwest where it gets really, really cold, kind of the breadbasket? Do they migrate south? Do the ones on the coast barely migrate because it's more temperate? The ones in Washington, it never really gets 20 below there. But here we get 20, 30, 40 below zero. Do they migrate? And do they migrate for reasons of comfort? Or could it be just reasons for food sources? Or if they're truly meat eaters, maybe there's, because meat is 365. It's 365 days a year. So those are all the complicated confusion questions with migration. And I would think Scott would be, with the mapping project, would, be forming some opinions. And I'd love to hear certainly some of Scott's, but just people in general, what do they think about migration? Because it's confusing. Also, the other statement about migration, maybe this aids in us not being able to really track them. Because what if some stay, the healthy ones say, hey, I want to stick it out in Minnesota. And what if older ones go, hey, I'm just going to try to make a living here. I'm not up for that long, 800-mile walk. So those are some of the questions and sub-questions that I would really love to get some more opinions on.
I'm patiently
Sybilla,
waiting my turn with bated breath here.
Yeah, Sybilla, is it the property taxes you think, or? Oh, she's frozen. There you go. She's back. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
So we're talking about migration.
Yes. Do they migrate?
Yeah. I have I have heard some witnesses talk about seeing Sasquatches following a migration of elk that were leaving Colorado and going for New Mexico. And because New Mexico, there was a Native American reservation just right there, and that they were leaving Colorado and heading to New Mexico. So I kind of think that there is migration following the elk herds for that group, but I think it's really site and region specific about whether they migrate or not. I do know that when I was living in Kentucky on that research project, that when it was hunting season and all the hunters were out in the fields, the surrounding doing their hunting, I had zero activity. Like the Sasquatches literally just went dark. Like they seemed to understand that there were and there were plots of land that were hunted, and there were plots of land, like tons of acreage, that was never hunted. And there were sightings in the areas that were never hunted, and there were like zero sightings in the areas that were hunted. So, and that doesn't really pertain to migration, but it does seem to point to the fact that they really understand some of our activities and how to avoid us when they need to.
They're so intelligent. It's just unbelievable how they've figured out how to maneuver around us. I know that's like a whole show in itself.
They are very.
Mr. King Sharp.
I just have to go with my gut on this because I don't have enough data to speak intelligently about it, because I really haven't studied the migration of Sasquatch. I don't think anybody really knows. Obviously, everything we're talking about is subjective. My gut has always told me no. And I don't really know outside of that, just to say it's my gut feeling. It doesn't make sense to me that they would migrate, because if they are as elusive as I believe them to be, migration opens up a whole nother litany of problems for these things to go from one place to another. Like Doug said, you're talking 30, 40 below in Minnesota. They may have to go 800 miles to get to a more temperate climate in the middle of the winter. It just doesn't make sense to me that they're doing that all across the country, let's say, because I think if they were, we would have more sightings of these things in certain times of the year, like winter, when it would make sense that they were doing this migration. That's why my gut has always told me no. Of course, like most things, I'm usually wrong a lot of the time. So I could certainly be wrong about this, but my gut has always told me no. I don't think that they migrate. Again, that's about as intelligently as I can speak about it, because I don't have anything other than my gut that tells me that. So
You're in great company. And then I think the question would be, what constitutes migration? Is it just that they're going, several miles away, or, double-digit miles away, so that could be a form of migration. I don't know. I guess I don't know the definition, but I'll bet you that Scott Tompkins does.
I happen to be a hunter, Sybilla, and I've also done analysis on some of the Bigfoot sightings in the database seasonally. So my first comment would be along the lines of migration. I'll use mule deer, for example, and elk. They have a summer range and a winter range, right? So some elk sometimes their summer range can be, up in high elevation, right? And then their winter range is down in like farm fields and things like that don't happen to be that far away in a linear distance. But if you go up in elevation, they're really, it's a big change in climate and the environment that they're in. So I guess where I'm going with that would be what I've seen in the analysis that I've done. I think if you were to say migration, I think Bigfoot, and this is my opinion based just solely, I'll send you the post that I did a couple of years ago. There's a winter range, and I think what I've seen in the data is that it's actually more spread out. The sightings are further apart. And if you think about food availability, that might be why, right? It's more scarce, particularly in the Northeast is where I saw a more spread out range in the winter. And then spring comes along and it starts to concentrate. Summer is the most concentrated time that I've seen in the map anyway. And then fall, they start to spread out again. So that could be for a lot of reasons. It could be for mating. It could be for food availability. It could be for like weather or all of the above. So in short, I think, yes, they do regionally migrate, if that could be a term I could coin, kind of like a winter range and a summer range situation, similar to elk and mule deer. But as far as long ranging migrations, like from, hundreds or thousands of miles, I don't see that in the data. But then again, who's to say that the database that I've got is complete? We're still working on it. But based on what I've analyzed, I think there's a regional migration based on, again, either mating, food availability, and weather and seasonal change. That's what I'm seeing so far.
I know this would be more in the realm of subjective, but do you, Scott, feel like that those teenagers, when they get to a certain age, they have to leave that troop, if you will, where there's an alpha male in place?
It's possible. I mean, going back to elk again, there's like satellite bulls, and they roam looking for a herd or for females. So yeah, I think it's possible. But to that's where data is key, and really to get reliable reports to be able to say that, authoritatively, that's a tough one, because how does somebody who sees a Bigfoot for the first time know the age or the gender, et cetera?
Right.
So I think it's using known wildlife as a model. Yes, I think it's possible, but I don't have anything in the data set to authoritatively say, yeah, I think that's happening.
Great scientist. Well, you have to tell us what you do at some point during the show, but let's go to Mr. King Sharp. Or no, actually, it's Miss Sybilla. Oh, no, wait. We went to... Amy!
Amy.
Forgot. We got to come back around the circle. Thank you,
I'm
love.
just thinking around the circle or around the
Thank
circle.
you, love.
Like volleyball, right? You got to rotate in.
Right.
Yes.
Well, I think I agree with everybody that I don't think the term migration maybe is the best word, because as far as most people are thinking of, geese flying south and going long distances. But we do have some evidence of, if you're looking at track evidence, where there will be the tracks that look like they're from the same animal that show up several miles away many years later, or even closer in time. So if those are legitimate tracks, then it seems like they do, move around quite a bit. I have an app called Follow, FAHLO. It's not my app, but I downloaded the app, where you can buy a bracelet that will follow like a gorilla or an elephant, and it gives money, to help the animals, and you could see how they move around and things. So they definitely move around for food. Maybe the climate. I agree with whoever it was that said it would really depend on if they have to move. If they don't have to move, I don't think they would move much, but if they need to move around a little bit or a lot to follow food, then for sure. And I was glad that you brought it up. This is what I was waiting to say, is that from my understanding, gorillas do leave one group to go to another group to help protect the breeding population, especially if there aren't that many Sasquatch. And my personal belief is there could be less than we think. I don't know that, of course. I'm just thinking of like the Cross River gorillas. They think there are only 200 to 300 left in the wild now, and they would have to be protective of their breeding population. So yes, like you said, DJ, the younger male gorillas will go to another troop because they aren't allowed to be, back with the main silverback. And, so they go over there for that reason. And you said that too, Scott, about mating. So that is something, again, if they are a natural creature, if they are some type of a primate, it would depend on whether they're closer to an orangutan, gorilla, or a human. But I could see that would be a possibility that they leave.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think people have extrapolated upon, you'll see people that have seen a male and a female or a group of female, and they'll say, wow, the male looks really well coiffed and taken care of. And then they'll see one that looks not quite as large, but really scraggly hair or dirty hair. And so you can sort of build a narrative out of that. It's just, it's anecdotal, but it's something, like they say. And, anecdotes are a form of evidence. There may not be proof, but they're evidence. So
Interesting.
here I'm talking to Brian. He's gonna be like, "Yo, let me get my book out." So anyway, okay. So I think, did we get everybody? Did Mr. Hajicek need to get in? Help me out, Nathan. Where are we at?
We're good, unless Deb may have a comment. I don't know if she wants to.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
I wanted to add one more point. So migration is something that a lot of more intelligent primates have done in the whole great ape family. And one of the reasons we know that is because they diversified. And from what I've heard, there is some diversity with Sasquatch. So I just wanted to throw that out there as a potential piece of evidence.
That's another great topic too, Deb. That whole line. Nathan, did you have anything?
I was going to mention that to me it seems to be a sort of a function of energy and caloric need. So, what is their diet? I mean, if they're a creature of the size that they would have to be, being so tall, so muscular, etc., what is their primary food source? And I would think it would need to be something that would be, very calorically dense, energy rich. Otherwise, they have to consume a tremendous amount of vegetation to meet the caloric needs that they would have. And so, migration, I would imagine, would be really tethered to the food that they need to sustain their biomass. And so you think about a huge creature, the more they have to travel, the more energy they actually need to be able to do that. So maybe they do travel with these herds because that might be their primary food source.
Yeah, when I went to survival school, they talk about that over and over about expending energy when you're in a survival situation and how many calories you're going to need to go do X, Y, and Z. And of course, these shows like Alone, they talk about that as well, but they hit that over and over in survival school. I think, Bigfoot like me is upset that Whole Foods doesn't have those Tatanka bars, the buffalo with the cranberry, because, man, that was a great food source. They could just carry it with them, great calories. But anyway, okay. So that was Doug. So we need to go to Miss Irwin.
Okay. So there's a question that comes to me all the time from my, the people that watch my channel. And I feel such a big responsibility to people when they ask me this question. And I would love to hear from everyone on this panel, like, how do they answer this question when people ask it? Are these beings dangerous? And, I'm working tomorrow with a man who literally says the only reason he's alive is because they had weapons. And then on the other hand, you have people who have just incredible, like the one man who, the Sasquatch was doing sign language to speak to him. So you have these experiences all over the spectrum, from the most aggressive to, just they're curious about you. So I'd love to know how the people on this panel feel about how dangerous are these creatures, these beings.
Brian, great question.
I can tell you, I have never been of the opinion that every Sasquatch out there is out to kill everybody. They're responsible for every person who goes missing in the national parks across the country. But I can tell you this from personal experience. I've talked to a lot of people who have had experiences, and there have been some hair-raising experiences that I've documented on my show, at least. Just recently, I had a gentleman come on, First Nations person from up in, he's in Alaska. And he was talking about, he started his channel talking about these things are not our friends. He got into their oral history, and their oral history is nothing but warnings about the hairy man. And it is played out time and time again in his life and the life of some of the elders that he is associated with and his friends and family. He told a harrowing story on my show just last week about having to shoot his way out of a cabin. And it's very, Go ahead.
That's Fred, right? Is that Fred?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to be doing his witness sketches.
He mentioned that. So
Yes, that's awesome.
serendipity, right?
Yeah, that's
Sketching
awesome. Oh, I'm so
encounters.
excited. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm very excited to see that you're going to work with him and come up with some of these images, because his stories are so compelling. And I believe every word that comes out of Fred's mouth, to be quite honest with you. He has no dog in the fight to be telling anything other than the truth here. And other people I've had on the show that have talked about very scary encounters with these things. So if they are large primates, and I believe that they are, they have the propensity, just like human beings, to be very dangerous creatures. I think these things have personalities very similar to people. There are nice people and there are horrible people. There are people who kill in rage and there are serial killers. And I'm certainly not trying to put those traits on any Sasquatch by any means, so please don't quote me there. But I said all that to say, I think there is the propensity for that to be there in these creatures, just like in human beings. So I think they can be very dangerous. And I think that everybody who goes out looking for these things needs to be careful. And I think you need to have your head on a swivel. And I think you need to be smart about doing your research and go out in pairs, at least with other people, and be prepared. You know, some people don't like to carry weapons. I don't go hiking on my 40 acres here without a weapon because of bears. You know, I don't want to shoot a bear, but I don't want to be mauled by one either. And I certainly don't want to be killed by a Sasquatch. I don't want to kill a Sasquatch, but you need to protect yourself. And I think you have to be smart. So long-winded way to say, I think these things are dangerous. I think they can be dangerous. Are they all dangerous, bloodthirsty killers? By no stretch of the imagination. They're just like bears. They're just like gorillas. They're like any other large primate and or large dangerous mammals. You have to treat them with respect, and the propensity for danger is always there.
Can't argue with that. And there's enough encounters where they've walked through campsites and not touched anybody's stuff. So you have to take that into account. But you also, it's a dangerous animal. I just want to say for everybody out there, this is Calling All Beings, and man, what an amazing panel we have tonight. You guys are just killing it, just exactly like we thought you would. So with that, let's see. Right after Mr. Sharp goes, Mr. Tompkins.
Cool. I'm going to repeat something my grandmother had to hammer into me when I was a kid, is don't touch wild animals, So I think Sasquatch are wild animals, and along the same lines like Brian was saying, situationally, it depends on how they're going to behave and what they perceive that if you're a threat or not, right? So, for example, if a mother bear has cubs or an alligator is near its nest, that natural instinct to protect their young is going to kick in, and they become lethal, right? But any other time, they may avoid you and just go a different way. So I think it really depends on how, because they have a higher intellect, how they perceive that person's behavior, if they recognize weapons and pattern that, if they think you're infringing on their territory, as an alpha male might think. So I think my answer is yes, they can be dangerous. I agree with that, but I do think that they don't necessarily behave that way all the time. I think it's a reaction more than it is a habit with these creatures, depending on what they perceive that we're doing in their world.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, Miss Amy.
I agree with what the gentleman said before me. If they are some type of a natural, earthly creature, I would just say, Mama Bear, like you did, Scott, I'm a nice person, but go after my daughter and I'm not, so I would think that any type of an animal, or even if they're closer to a human, would do the same. And just to play devil's advocate here, because I think everybody knows that my interest in Sasquatch is based on whether or not they could be a living, breathing, pooping, mating animal, right? That's how I look at them. That's my interest, not saying I'm right. But if they were something different, say something spiritual, I'm seeing different comments in the chat, which I greatly respect, other people's ideas. I hope that they wouldn't be just all good. And I don't know if that sounds really weird, but to me, something that would have no ability to show even like righteous anger or something like that would be, they wouldn't have any kind of free will. You know what I mean? Like, so I know I'm kind of getting out there, but even if you're looking at it in a different way, I think there's always the potential of getting angry, right? I don't know.
Sure.
Just trying to think outside the box here. But as an animal, we talk a lot about different primates. I always say I'd much rather meet a gorilla than a chimpanzee out in the woods. They're very different, but I don't want to meet a mad gorilla either. So I think that they could be dangerous.
The only chimp I'd want to meet would be a bonobo. That's it.
Yes, that could be okay.
Yeah.
Your students must absolutely love you, Amy, I'm sure.
Some days.
I was going to say I didn't get to ask this on Doug's show, but like we say, living, breathing, flesh and blood or something else, I like to say absolutely. I believe it's a living, breathing flesh creature, animal, part human, whatever you want to call it. But like humans, there are humans that have some extraordinary abilities, remote viewing. We can get into psychokinesis, all these different things. Is it possible that some of them have an ability, even though it's a flesh and bleeding creature? That way we don't have to, say you're either on this side or you're on that side. Maybe there's a middle ground.
I definitely agree. And a lot of things that are paranormal, we just can't explain, I think.
Yeah. We have ghosts. I mean, Doug's had them in his house. So is it possible they have ghosts too when they die? And they just, they're chilling around in Salt Fork State Park where they found a great home for maybe 20, 30 years or more.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Why does it have to be either or? Like you're either flesh and blood or you're spiritual. Why can't it be a mixture of those things like we are? We're flesh and blood and we're spiritual beings as well.
That's a good point. We have a consciousness. That's right. Great point, Sybilla. All right. Did Deb and Nathan have anything before we? Oh, do we?
Doug,
I'm sorry,
Doug
Mr. Hajicek.
yet.
Mr. Hajicek, sir.
Oh, okay. So I think Brian started it out really good. You're dealing with probably an animal or a creature that generally operates on fear because they do stay out of trouble most of the time. They don't run into a small town and start tearing awnings off buildings. Okay. So they operate on fear like a black bear. So they're reserved, but I think they're very, very individual. I think, just like people, you've got more curious ones, less curious ones, wise ones, naive ones. You've got different sexes that are going to behave differently. And that really becomes hard to then put some kind of pattern on them, to put a label on them. Obviously, I've experienced their explosive temper. So I do believe if you surprise them, they have an explosive temper, like a chimp or even a gorilla. They can explode too, and it doesn't mean they're going to kill somebody, but they might grab you by the leg and drag you up the hill quick, just to show you who's boss because you startled them. Black bears are the same way. I've been in many, many close 1 foot away with mother with cubs, and everything's cool, but I'll do something just a little wrong that I don't even know what I did, and it'll set her off explosively, and she'll swat you or swat the ground. And I think they're a lot like that, so if you maintain your distance, don't do anything rash, I think you're generally safe. But there may be also Bigfoots that have got a health problem. They're starving, they're ornery, they've got a thorn in their foot, they have an injury. And like wild animals, those animals are going to be more dangerous, if they're starving and whatnot. And so that's kind of it. And that's kind of back to even the migration thing. I think we're just dealing with so many individuals that do so many different things. There's no pattern except for some patterns. And so it becomes a really tough thing to get a handle on, far harder than like a troop of gorillas that eat a very few different types of plants. You have very similar habits. I think Bigfoots are kind of all over the map, so those are my feelings. But
that's my new slogan, Doug. Bigfoot's all over the map.
Yeah, everything's all over the map.
Do you take Venmo, Doug?
Yeah, I take Venmo. Yeah, go ahead.
SUNY Cortland's own Scott Tompkins.
But even bears, like Brian had mentioned, taking a gun when he goes out because of the black bears. Generally, you're okay. But man, if you get a bad one, you'd hate to be unarmed. And that does happen. There are black bear attacks. They're rare, but they do happen. Mm-hmm. And no doubt there's Bigfoot attacks that we don't know anything about because there's nobody surviving to tell the tale. If a Bigfoot wants to get you, it's going to drag you off. There's no doubt in my mind. You're going to be dragged away into the woods. You're probably not going to be killed right then and there. You're going to be dragged away, and you probably are going to be killed. But I just know that there's a great range of individuals with these things. And I will say for sure, yes, they have an explosive temper. So, but I'm still here. They didn't kill me.
And there's a lot of anecdotes that suggest that there are far more where people walked away or it walked away than there are anecdotes where someone was was injured. Of course, I think it was Ohio, Amy, where those two fishermen, they kind of got close to that island. The rocks started coming off that little island. Then he exited the boat with his cousin in there. It was a ranger. He took through a rock, and then it came flying out of the woods and whacked him and broke his ribs. And they had like a 45-minute troll back to the car. So, that one was
like everybody was saying, you hear stories about that, but personally, I don't think there's and not that you were saying it, but I just thought about it. I don't think there's any like maliciousness or evil intent behind it. I think it's more just get out of here. Leave us alone.
This is where I fish, not you.
Well, the fact that they throw rocks should tell everybody they don't want to confront you.
Right.
The rock throwing alone is mainly to warn you without confrontation. They don't want an altercation. And that's, just that old cliche about them just operating on fear, which has helped them survive all these years. It's a survival mechanism. That's why black bears are scared of their own shadows. It's helped them survive. Black bears evolved during, they had to survive when there were saber-toothed tigers roaming. And so that's why black bears are so skittish. We don't have the saber-toothed tigers now, but boy, they know their place. When they skid up a tree, they're doing that because they're scared. So.
And that voice you're hearing right there is Mr. Doug Hajicek. One of the things we didn't mention at the open is that Doug has something around he's an inventor with something like 1,500 patents. A lot of people don't know that about him. But our discussion of motorcycles led us into that he's an inventor, and it's just fascinating. So this is a question from Pam Esper, my friend from Central Florida, and she would like to know. Nathan, would you read that one, sir?
Absolutely. All right. So Pam says, DJ, I would like to know from some of the panel, what do you think about skunk ape Florida, Louisiana, Texas? Do you believe them to be some form of monkey instead of a Bigfoot?
Who would like to tackle that one? Anyone? Scott?
I'll let Scott speak up in a second. Just really quickly, I'll say I believe that skunk ape is some sort of a Bigfoot. That's just always been my take on it. And again, I've had some very aggressive encounters come out of Louisiana where dogs have been killed and thrown 40 feet over people's heads. I don't think it's a smaller version of some sort of a monkey or something, in my opinion, doing that. I think it's some sort of a Bigfoot.
Yeah, I'm on the same page.
I think it's Bergman's law, in full effect.
Yeah.
And they're lighter. They're often described with reddish hair, which would be less. It would be tend to heat up less than black hair or gray hair. So yeah, I think they're just a form of a Bigfoot too. That's definitely on the far end of Bergman's law. They're smaller with a smaller body mass.
Scott?
Yeah, I agree with Brian and Doug. And I'll chime in with, I don't know if everyone knows this, but there's actually a population of monkeys that live in Ocala, like State
National
Forest,
Forest.
State Park there. There's a small population of monkeys that live in the swamps there. And so you may be seeing monkeys actually, but I do believe the skunk ape that populates like the Gulf Coast is a Bigfoot. And Alex Pedikov, who is a wonderful researcher, and I have done a lot of research and talks about that hotspot that's in like Central Florida there near Ocala. And also he and I did an expedition into the Atchafalaya last year. We camped and we paddled in and camped all the way in what we determined was a good spot looking for Bigfoot. So nothing eventful, but it was quite an experience to learn what it's like to quote unquote live in that swamp, the biggest swamp in the US. So long-winded answer, I think it's a Bigfoot more than a monkey.
Yeah, it seems to me they would all be from the same family to a degree. Let's see what else we got here. Actually, we have to let's finish our roundtable, and then we can get to some of the questions in the chat with the time we got left. So is that you? Yeah, Mr. Sharp.
Oh, it's my turn to ask a question.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have it written down. This is
And my wife just got home from Brazil.
Shameless plug number 2. In chapter 11 of Sasquatch Unleashed: The Truth Behind the Legend, I talk about this. Human population growth and land loss. How it potentially affects Bigfoot, their movements, and more importantly, I guess for me, just as a side subject, how does it affect how many sightings we have of these things when we're encroaching into their area? So I'd like to hear from the panel what they're feeling on our human population growth and land loss, how it affects the population of Sasquatch that are out there. Let's just take the continental United States.
I just want to say, Brian, you and I should talk about your branding, because I'm having a hard time figuring out the name of your podcast, what you're hosting. So we got to work on that. Anyway, Scott, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I've been taking notes here. I'm going to make a banner for the next time that I
Doug made this banner for me, so maybe you can Venmo him some money and
I think I will. There's a few things I'm going to owe Doug for, I think, after this call, and you. But
Bigfoot's all over the map, dude.
A consulting fee for sure. But to jump on your question, and this is actually one of my favorite things to look at, because it's very easily viewed through a map when you have the good data set to put behind all the points in the map, all the reports that have come in. And I'll refer to the data set first. It's the green infrastructure data set put out by Esri. And what it is it's a bunch of corridors, right, that connect wildlife hubs. So like a wildlife hub would be a state forest, a national forest, state park, a big green area with high conservation value. So it can support a lot of wildlife, right? And then between these areas, you start to get the most traveled corridors, which have the least cost pathways. So what's the path of least resistance between each hub, right? And you can start to see what human progress, I guess I'll call it, and development is doing to these corridors. It's starting to squeeze them so they become more and more defined funnels. So if you look at land use or land cover over time, and go back as far as you can, you'll see that there's just vast areas. It's hard to whittle down really identifiable corridors, or there might be a lot of corridors in a specific area. But when you start to pave over things, build highways, you start to separate environments, things like that, you can really start to see defined corridors. And I think that may increase the amount of sightings, because now you need people to have sightings, but now there's so much more surrounding these corridors, and there's so few and far between in highly developed areas that the wildlife, not just Bigfoot in these areas, have no choice but to go through the same funnel over and over again between these big areas. So that's when they're exposed. That's when they're at risk of being seen from the side of a highway, perhaps, or people hiking, things like that, because there's a lot more outdoor activity, especially in the Pacific Northwest, for example. There's so many hikers. It's such a big part of the culture. And that's why you see such a big hotspot there, right? Now in the Southeast, maybe you don't see that as many sightings in the summer, because as Sybilla pointed out, it's 1,000,000 degrees here, and nobody wants to be out in the swamp with mosquitoes the size of your fist. So you might not see those sightings, but there are people driving these highways down in the Southeast, for example, and in Florida and hotter areas that are heavily developed where you might see wildlife from the road. So I think, again, I'm pretty long-winded. It must be the caffeine tonight, but I think to answer your question, I think that sightings are increasing. You see that sharp increase from like the 60s forward, right? Because of human development, just displacing these creatures from their environment, habitat destruction, things like that. And then what's really left behind for them to travel is so sparse, right? So they only have the choice of using these corridors that are left over or that weave between suburbs or things like that, drainages, rivers, creeks, etc.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is not long-winded. I heard a podcast the other night, Scott. The host went an hour and 40 minutes and never got to ask a question. So
it wasn't one that I did it? Was it?
No, I'm not going to tell anybody who it was on air, but it was. I get on a tangent sometimes. An hour and 40 minutes. The host never got to ask his first question. Anyway, let's go to Amy on that one.
I hope that I'm going to answer the question. Okay, I start going off of tangents in my own mind, but as far as where they can survive privately, as far as that land disappearing, I think it's scary for all kinds of animals. And the first thing I thought about when you asked that question was, I remember reading an article last year, and hopefully I don't get details wrong, so I'm not going to say that many details. But there were, in Africa, there were a bunch of elephants that were dying, and they couldn't figure out why they were dying, like hundreds of elephants. And from what I remember, it was because just exactly that, their habitat was shrinking, so their population was denser. And then there was like some type of bacteria that was attacking them, and they died from it. So I think, it's a concern for all animals if that is to happen. And I don't know what to do about it, but I agree with you, Scott, that the likelihood of seeing one is probably greater as they're crowding in, but not sure that's, I know you don't think so either. It's not a good thing. But it's something to be concerned about.
Yep, maybe sightings will pick up. Mr. Hajicek.
Well, I listened to what Scott said, but one thing that's never talked about is that, these corridors and there's a lot of development are getting narrower, but that's where the animals are focused. That's where all the wild turkeys exist. That's where all the deer exist. They're focused. If any of you ever gone into the true wilderness, I'll bet you good money you won't even see a bird. You won't see deer. You won't see moose. You won't see anything. Most of the animals stay towards the edges. If man has made a road, that's your best spot at spotting something, because they're using those areas. If there's farm fields, edges, barbed wire, it's actually helped wildlife. And I think Bigfoot punches into those suburban areas, the urban sprawl, to go after the wildlife. I mean, it's so bad here in my own neighborhood, the wildlife, it's hard to even go biking because there's so many deer herds, so many turkey flocks, and they're blocking the trails. I mean, it's kind of insane. We'll have to wait an hour sometime to even get by because there's so much wildlife, and I don't want to, plow through a herd of deer. But this is where we're seeing, the fox, the coyotes, the grouse, the pheasants, just everything. And then, of course, you've got eagles and hawks overhead. And so there's always, there's a price to pay for urban sprawl, but there's also some benefits. It does seem to balance out because they're finding out right now that wolves are actually thriving and because of the man-made edges, because of the roads, because of the trails, gives them very easy travel corridors. So that's kind of the other side of the coin, I guess. And I'm not saying I'm for urban sprawl. I'm not. It's just I think it's gotten way out of hand. But I do know that the wildlife seems to adapt to it and flocks to it because we have a bigger variety of plants on those edges. We have agriculture on those edges, which many animals take advantage of. And so it may not be the predator that takes advantage of the agriculture. It may be the prey animal that does, and so it attracts the predator. So it's far more complicated than one might think. I also wanted to respond to one of the comments. I think somebody misunderstood me when I was saying Bigfoots operate on fear. I think she thought or he thought I was saying Bigfoots cause fear in people. No, I was saying when an animal operates on fear, it's afraid of humans. It stays away from humans. It does what it can to avoid humans. That's what I meant. So anyway, I just wanted to clarify that too.
Sybilla, let's say you're headed down to your local Dairy Queen in Southwest Texas to get a blizzard. I'm sure you get an Oreo blizzard every now and again. Do you expect to see Bigfoot? No. He's like, no, I'm low sugar. So anyway.
That's true. I believe these beings are so highly intelligent and so highly adaptive, and I really think that if they're living in close proximity to people, that they learn like say a family. And the reason I say this is because I kind of felt this when I moved into that house in Crittenden, Kentucky. I really felt like I was watched and studied. Like, okay, so here, let's see what kind of a threat this person is. And I was watched and kind of studied. And then, human beings' lives are so incredibly patterned that it wouldn't take very long to know what time these people are getting up, what time they're leaving for work, what time they're coming home, what time they go to bed. So that if you were wanted to raid their chickens, you'd know exactly what time when the lights went out to go get their chickens or something. So I really think that these creatures are so adaptable that they're going to adapt to wherever they're living and to the people that have. Oops, did I? Can y'all still hear me?
You're back. You're back.
Okay.
Yes,
I just think it's just my experience that they're so highly adaptable to their situations and to what's going on in their situations that I think these things can be living right around people, and after living on this place for 5 years, I absolutely understand why there's farmers all around there that have no idea that the Sasquatch are living among them, because what they do on a daily basis is so subtle that if you're not paying attention, you're not going to see the things they leave behind, unless they're slamming your house, which they did that, or throw things. But I think the average person is just going to write stuff off as something else. I mean, I think that they are highly adaptive and they can live around humans. And if the neighborhood keeps expanding, they'll just keep adapting. That's kind of what I think.
I think the only reason they slapped the house, they thought like, oh, Sybilla's making fries. She's not using lard. She's using canola oil. That probably made them a little angry. So that was everybody. So we got some questions from the chat here. This is from our friend Mick from the UK. Debs, would you read this one, ma'am?
Question: has Doug and anyone on the panel managed to capture any really good video footage of Sasquatch?
Not me.
Nope. No video footage, but I'll put an asterisk up. I haven't got to ask my question of all you guys yet. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we'd miss you. Okay. I'm sorry. Scott goes next.
No, go ahead and answer the question, but I haven't got
please.
any video footage.
I wish.
Yeah, therein lies the problem, Mick. I mean, everybody is trying to get, so we've alluded to the intelligence throughout the show here. Doug has a couple of tricks up his sleeve. Some he tried last year. More he'll try this year. So the issue's not closed, but they're incredibly intelligent about avoiding cameras. I mean, I think that's the bottom line, and couple that with the fear that they can instill in people when they do have the chance to take a photo and you're front and center, but you're just so freaked out that you're not thinking about, let me get my camera out now. You're probably like thinking, can I survive this encounter? So, and please, and everybody that wants to take a shot at that, and then Scott will go.
Can I say something about it?
Please, ma'am.
About the video. That's probably one of the biggest questions I get. I go to a lot of places, outdoor shows, different places, talk about Sasquatch. And what I always like to point people to is the Cross River gorilla, which is I brought up earlier. They are in Africa on the border of Cameroon and Nigeria. And it was just this century that they were really no longer cryptids to most scientists. They weren't thought to exist. They were thought to be mythological. The people there, the natives, were just using these stories about these hairy men in the woods, except they're real. And if you look them up, you can see the first video ever taken of them where, people were looking at them for years and years. And one of the primate zoologists that I work with in Project Zoo Book, the curator of a zoo that he used to work in, was one of the first Westerners that saw these gorillas in person. And he lived there for, I believe, 8 years, had different guides taking him around trying to find these gorillas, and finally saw them for a total of 10 seconds. So, they would find some signs, nests, different things like that, but couldn't find the actual gorillas. But anyway, if you look up that first camera trap footage, there are several females that are coming out of the trees, and one male, one silverback, comes into the frame and he bluff charges that camera, and all of them are looking right at the camera. So I like to say that was a lot of luck that they got that footage to begin with. And every single one of those gorillas was aware of that camera. It wasn't that they were just walking by and they sneakily got footage. It was in the right place at the right time, but they knew it was there, whether they could hear something or smell it, or it was just something odd where they normally go. I don't think Bigfoot has to be much different than that. They're intelligent and they can avoid things, I think. So I'm not sure where that question was coming from. I'm assuming, maybe I shouldn't assume, but we get a lot of why aren't there more pictures? Why don't we have more video? And I just point people to that because that was just the sense we finally got them on camera.
Yeah, I mean, the real reason there's no pictures because nobody's hiding cameras. A camera trap strapped to a tree is not hiding a camera. I'm working on systems where the cameras are completely hidden. There's no way I could say it's right there on that tree and you won't be able to find it. That's what it'll take. Multi-step planning, because these creatures seem to be very savant-like, where they know their environment and they spot them and they avoid them. Mm-hmm. But we did an experiment last year and we had them standing on our cameras because they were hidden. Unfortunately, right, there was no natural light because there was thick cloud cover. There was no moon under that cloud cover either. So it was just really, really black, no stars, nothing. But we're hoping we're going to do the same exact thing in the same area this year. But we've got good moon coming. So we've looked at the solar tables, and we know that we're going to have good moon, and all we need is good weather. But if you can take a miniature camera, and I would say like a motorcycle dash cam camera system that's IR, turn the IR lights off because you don't want that garbage, and then hide the camera so it cannot be seen. Now, I'm not talking about barely seen. No, it cannot be seen at all. And when you can figure that out, now you've got something. You have to actually put it under something to where something walking cannot see it. completely 100% out of you, and there's no light, IR, or any other type coming out of the camera, I think then the game will change.
Don't bet against Doug Hajicek is what I have to say.
In the
So we
chat,
have
they're saying,
we
"Oh, I'm sorry.
we
Go
have
ahead."
we have about 7 minutes left. So I want to get Scott's question in here, but we need to tighten it up a little bit because then we want to go through all of everybody's projects before we close the show. So please go ahead, Scott.
7 minutes. That's a challenge. Okay.
Yes, be brief and answers.
So I will be brief. I'd like actually to get Brian, being former law enforcement. I think you may have good insight into one of my biggest frustrations with the Bigfoot mapping project is I try to find data that is corroborating or supporting data like forest type or agricultural data, USDA data, USGS data. And one of the biggest challenges I have is finding cave locations. And in my research, I've found that I have it up on my screen here. In U.S. Code, Chapter 63, from Title 16, Section 4304, if I were to find those cave locations and publish them on a map, I'm actually violating federal law. That's why I cannot find cave locations. And I'm going to get a little conspiratorial here. And my justification is, for example, they justify it under safety, right? They don't want people going spelunking and dying in a cave. But if that were the case, why don't they keep people from climbing cliff faces and, Half Dome in any national park or up a mountainside? If it was truly for safety, why aren't they doing things like obscuring waterfall locations or other dangerous locations? Why is it just caves? And why I get frustrated is because so many people reach out to me on my channel asking, can you show me cave locations in comparison to like the Bigfoot sightings? How close are they? There's theories that they retreat to caves, live in caves. And all I'm able to find is cave concentration. Like in Kentucky, I have great cave density data, great data available there. But nationally, I'm unable to find a really good data set. So I was curious if anybody had an opinion or insight into maybe a little conspiratorial opinion or something beyond just blanket safety, why that data set is so protected.
I'll take. I can certainly try to use a couple sources I have and see if they know anything about it. I've had difficulty getting Lou Elizondo to talk about Bigfoot, other than one episode, or any of the big players. One of my other guys that's inside. I'm looking for that one person. And I think once we get one person, like Tim Burchett from Tennessee, or Tim Burchett, if you want to, how he says it. Somebody like that, who I've heard that he has had a Bigfoot experience, as has Mitch McConnell. Just, I guess it's the political expediency for them to talk about it. But if we can get one person, I think we'll get some movement. So go ahead, and that would be Amy first.
I don't know about any conspiracy or anything like that. I do know, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I do know that one of the reasons I went back to school to become an Ohio certified volunteer naturalist is because we get access to different things that I don't as a private citizen. So one of the things I was most interested in are the cave maps that I was able to see. That's something I'm really interested in, especially somewhere like Ohio, where you don't have as much covering like as you do in the Pacific Northwest. So why they don't, I mean, I guess I always thought it was just the danger of it, somebody getting hurt. Sometimes the government thinks we're a bunch of simpletons and can't follow safety procedures, but that is one reason that I
guess I ask, if I can add on to that. I ask because you don't typically hear the government doing something proactively. They usually make a law in reaction to something.
True.
And just blanket safety, it's not very specific why they just it's like a single line in the code. Oh, it's just for safety. So it just triggered my curiosity.
Yeah.
Why is it such a serious law at the federal level regarding caves if it's just for safety, when there's not many similar laws that I'm aware of for other natural features?
And I'll just chime in here and tell you my personal experience from being in law enforcement for 16 years. There was probably, if you trace this back and really dial in when the law was introduced and when it was passed, there may have been some family that died in a cave in some area. There was something very specific that predicated this law being introduced into Congress and being ultimately adopted. I mean, there's weird laws on the books, dude. I mean, I remember being an Atlanta City cop. I think it's still on the law now that a lady can't walk down Peachtree Street in Atlanta without wearing gloves. That's against the law. You can't spit on the sidewalk. I mean, there's just these weird laws, but most of them had something to do with a specific incident. So I bet if you really drill down, I think it's probably less conspiratorial and more about some specific thing that happened, and somebody in their district took it up as a, you know, they're carrying the gauntlet for these people, and they ended up getting this law passed, and it just affects everything. So, I mean, my opinion, it's probably a little less conspiratorial, and it's probably something very simple that happened. It might have happened 150 years ago, but the law is still on the books. But I think it's something that we could definitely start to band together and look into as a community as a whole, and start calling out your local representation, whatever state you're in, and talk about this law that's on the books. And I mean, that's how change happens. I mean, somebody could take this up and actually maybe get it overturned or abridged to a point where that may be more public information. I don't know. Just my 2 cents.
Getting hands on that data set would be really amazing.
Somebody in the chat said about not disturbing endangered bats. It's a really good point. It could be ecological reasons.
That's true.
There is one rich man from Nebraska who started the low-fat food craze, and the reason why McDonald's no longer uses beef tallow in their French fry concoction is because of one guy. Malcolm Gladwell did an entire show on how one guy started that. So like what you said, Brian, it's very possible you get a group up there, like you said, somebody was killed in a cave, or they, you know, local law enforcement, you know, found a number of people that had died exploring caves, got lost, became disoriented. I mean, you saw that Thai, those Thai kids that were in that cave. Were it not for those, you know, even with, you know, my friends from Air Force Pararescue and the Navy SEALs and the Thai Navy SEALs that were in attendance, had you not had those two British SAR guys, those guys who were expert at deep cave diving, everybody would have died in there. It was only because those guys were able to locate them and not become disoriented and find their way out and all these things. So anyway, great question. Who's going to go next? Doug? Let's see. We got Amy. So yeah, Doug, please.
Well, at first, before I even want to think about caves, I've got to ask myself, is there any connection between Bigfoot's using caves? And I hear that all the time, yet I've never really seen any evidence of them using caves as travel routes or shelter. That doesn't mean they don't. I'm just saying I don't see a lot of evidence to it. But I would think that with a little searching, and I'm gonna work on this, Scott. There's got to be a group of national splunkers that have mapped out all these cave locations.
There's a lot of speleological societies I've found, and they're very, very, very protective of their data
Really,
sets.
that's interesting. Yes. That is interesting. Do you feel that Bigfoots are utilizing caves, Scott?
I don't know. I would like to get the data set so I can make an opinion, get on that without having anything to analyze. I would like to explore it further. And that's one of the data sets that causes me the most frustration because I get a lot of questions about that. And I really have no way to answer them other than speculation.
Is there a map that would show limestone
karst
concentrations? Karst, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Are there maps that show where the karst is concentrated
yes.
around the country? Because anywhere you have karst, you're going to have caves, period.
Doug is going to take this for action. We will
I'm
attack
excited.
this in our next roundtable. We will present Doug's findings. I love it, man. He's a badass. Who else? Sybilla.
I kind of fall on the side with Brian. I think that it was probably because it was necessary. If people have, I mean, this happened locally not too long ago. There was a huge, huge cave found in South Texas, and I think they kind of at it out of the bag as where it was, and people started flooding the area. So they had to hire security to keep people from going there. People are just not smart, and they don't respect other people's property. It seems like so.
It can be very, very dangerous from what it sounds like. Those caves. I've never spelunked or anything, but it sounds like you could really easily get turned around. I've heard about people diving. I once heard, one of the UFC fighters talk about cave diving. And he said, man, it's just like you were this close to getting lost in there. And if your buddy gets lost, you got to leave him in there because panic sets in and you use up all your air and all these things. So, all right. If there's any final comments, and then we're going to go to we'll do our cabbie goodbyes where we'll thank you. And we also want to hear everybody talk about all the projects that they're doing. So any final comments between you amazing panelists? Okay, I'll take that as a no, Nathan. All right.
It's been an incredible conversation, though. Just
Yes,
really captivating. So thank you all for joining us. Do you want to go alphabetically through so people can talk about
yeah, please. Yeah.
Amy.
What do you want to know?
No, we just we really just, what we do is we say thank you for joining us. Just like giving of your time, man. You're so nice to chat with. I hope that we can have you on again so that you can give us more of this knowledge that you've gained, because you are like all in on this. Right?
That's so fun. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
So much. Yeah, it's great to have you. And Amy, for those of our listeners who may not be familiar with your work, where can they find you? Where's the best place to find your work now?
Well, I'm on Facebook, which is where I normally am. Thankfully, we are getting toward the finish line with Project Zoo Book having a new website, which we've been wanting to do for a long time. There's like a really rudimentary one out there where people can at least contact us, but it's going to be interactive. Hopefully it will be up sooner rather than later. And the Olympic Project also has a website that people can get onto. As far as projects I'm doing, this weekend starts my 2-month run of going to different outdoor shows all over Ohio and Pennsylvania, where I talk to different hunters and fishermen and get Bigfoot stories. It's one of my favorite things that I do. So that's starting this weekend. And I'm also writing a book. I'm getting toward the end of it and excited about that. So doing a project with Native Americans and all kinds of different things. So I'm excited.
You don't have enough things to do. You're really bored.
I know, right? Plus teaching was great.
Plus teaching. And I will see you at the Ohio Bigfoot Conference, yeah?
I will not be there, but I wish I could see you.
Yeah. I got an invitation from Tim, who's the one who connected me with Doug, Tim Halloran and Dana. So, okay. So let's go to our next person. Sorry. Let's go to Mr. Hajicek. Debs.
Well, once again, thank you, DJ, for inviting me. Thanks, everybody. Some really brilliant people here. I'm just trying to work on Legend Meets Science too. Keep my podcast going, Untold Radio AM and the network, Untold Radio Radio Network going. And we're publishing books. If anybody's got a really cool book, Amy, if you want us to give you some a spiel, we'd be happy to do that. But generally, you can get a hold of me on Facebook, and I just love talking about the topic. If people have questions or just comments, please get a hold of me.
And Pine Island Research, is that Jeff?
That's right? Jeff, yes.
Hey, Jeff. What's up, Minnesota
hello,
OG?
Jeff. Yep.
All right, go ahead, Nathan, Debs.
Yeah, Doug, it's been great to have you on the show. This has been an incredible conversation, and I hope we get to do it again because DJ, I know there's like a bazillion things we could talk about, and I know I have questions that we didn't touch on. Some of the ones that we've talked about on prior shows, but it'd be great to get some responses from these folks. So, looking forward to have you guys back.
Thank
Debs, we
you.
gotta hear from
Yes.
Debs.
Love to come back.
Thank you so much to everybody. Absolutely. I'm thrilled that you all were able to come together. I love seeing roundtables like this. And I have questions for all of you. So I'll be
She's
back.
writing a book for Doug, so she might be a year or 2 years down the road before it's done. And also, if you want to debate somebody about Bigfoot, and I mean, not, obviously not like an argument type thing, but like a legitimate Lincoln Douglas debate, Deb will host you on Anomalous Debates. Next, we have to go to Miss Irwin. Yay, Sybilla!
Hey, thank you so much for inviting me. It's just been so great to get to see all of you and visit with you and get to know you. People can find me at SybillaIrwin.com, and if they want to see the witness sketches, they just go to the gallery. There's a witness gallery. I just added a whole bunch of pictures from Matt Imsch and also from Mike Bluler. Just released his video last Friday, and it's just literally taken off. It's got 43,000 views already just since Friday. Yeah, it's just blown up.
Mississippi's own
also,
Mike Bluler.
yeah, I love Mike Bluler. Yeah,
Yeah.
So so Sketching Encounters. If they'll just go and please subscribe, and it's new witnesses like just all the time. 2 tomorrow I'm talking to, so I'm so excited. So, and thank you again for having me here.
Amazing. And I love the sketches though they have on there, because you get to see the diversity of what these beings look like. Money Nathan, Debs.
Yeah, Sybilla, you've been on the show before, and it's so great to have you back. It's just a real pleasure to speak with you, and I'm a huge admirer of your work and your passion for the subject. It just comes through. So thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to have you back on the show too for to keep up with what you're up to. And as you said, you get lots of folks coming to talk to you all the time, so I know you're going to have new stories to share.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for coming. I hope that one day we can just do like a gallery of all your artwork. That'll be really cool. I hope we can just do like a show.
Yeah.
That would be
let's
amazing.
work through that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that would be great.
Deb has so many good ideas. Oh my God, we're so lucky to have her. Brian King Sharp.
I'm just podcasting, man. You guys can find Sasquatch Odyssey, that Bigfoot podcast. You can find Backwoods Horror Stories. You can find Weird Encounters. You can find True Crime Odyssey. Anywhere you're listening to podcasts on your audio podcatchers. I do have a Sasquatch Odyssey and Backwoods Horror Stories YouTube channel. So if you're on YouTube and you're into that thing, you can find me there. The book is out for pre-sale. I am stoked about the book. Doug and Alex and all the guys at Hanger One Publishing were amazing at helping me get the book together. It was a project that I have had in my brain for many, many years, and we finally got it done, and I am stoked about how the book turned out. I'm very excited about it. I think there's a little bit of something in there for everybody. Sasquatch Unleashed, The Truth Behind the Legend is out for pre-sale. HangerOnePublishing.com. You guys can check it out, and just go and listen to the show, man. The shows are all about, this show particularly, Sasquatch Odyssey, is all about the encounters. I highlight encounters from everywhere. It's all about people who have had experiences with these things, because unlike Scott and some of the other more scientific people, I feel like I'm sort of a collector of data in my own right with the podcast, and we put it out there in perpetuity for everybody to listen to. And you can gain a little bit from every single one of these encounters that you hear on the show. And I think they all have something to offer in the overall Bigfoot conversation. So I'd love for you guys to listen to the show and check out all the encounters. We're about 420 some odd episodes into Sasquatch Odyssey at this point. So there's a little something out there for everybody. And you can find me at paranormalworldproductions.com. We have, I think, 7 shows under the network at this point. 4 I do myself, and then other people have that we, the Basement Hangout. Those guys are phenomenal. The Kentucky X-Files guys. We have some really great shows, a little bit of something in the cryptid world for everybody. So we'd love to have you check it out for us.
Yeah, I just want to say congratulations on all your success, Brian. You have really gotten after it and just done an amazing job that podcasters can look at it and go, okay, if I can follow, like what Brian did, I can be successful in this realm and do it as a career. So congratulations, brother. It's good to be your friend. Money Nathan.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you with us, Brian. And I know how hard it is to do podcasts. I do too, but to do more than two, which is clearly what you're doing, I don't even know how you find the time. So absolutely incredible. And I just love your approach, your investigative and analytical approach to the topic. It's really refreshing and really just super happy you were able to join us tonight, and looking forward to have you back.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for joining us. I look forward to hearing more about your book in the future. And I definitely will be checking out your podcast, one of your podcasts. There's so many, but definitely for
awesome.
sure, at least one. So thank you.
People love Brian. Is that your co-host Tiffany in the chat? Is that her?
Yep, that's Tea Time with Tiffany. She helps a lot on Paranormal Odyssey with Wayne, and she joins us for the live shows on That Bigfoot Podcast. We love Tiffany. She has a couple of books out. You guys go over and Hanger One Publishing. She's done a couple of books that she's got out over there as well. So check her stuff out.
Hi, Tiffany. Welcome. We hope to see you again. And just real quick, thank you, Doug, for getting everybody's work out there. It's just another thing that you're doing in the community. Mr. Tompkins.
I just want to say thank you for having me on such an esteemed panel. Everyone's input and feedback and ideas and opinions are going to be swirling around my head while I'm feeding my baby tonight. So, I don't really have time to sleep, so I have plenty of time to think. I'm looking forward to sharing these stories with him as he grows up. Really happy to be here. And if you'd like to follow the Bigfoot Mapping Project, it's bigfootmap.com, and on Instagram, it's at Bigfoot Mapping Project, and you can always reach out to me there. But another great way to get a hold of me would be just scott@bigfootmap.com is my email, and you can email me with any questions, whether it be about Bigfoot, GIS, maps, technical stuff, you name it. I'm always open for interesting questions, and I'll do my best to get back to you. I really enjoy hearing from everyone and getting to talk to people a little bit behind the scenes. It's a lot of fun.
This really made me feel like home, Scott, because, you're a hometown brother. I told you I go back there all the time, and your accent, it reminds me of home. And I'm just so proud of, to be from the Hudson Valley. So, and when SUNY Cortland, it was just awesome.
I've got to plug, if you go home all the time, you've got to go to Beacon and go on Main Street and go to Glazed Over Donuts. That's my mother and father's donut shop. So if you go in and say hi to them, they will load you up with a lifetime supply of donuts. It's Yelp top 100 donut shops in the country. So please go check it out. Yeah. Shameless plug, but I have nothing to do with their donuts. I'm just proud of them. They do a good job.
I will endeavor to do that. I'll be up there in August. Like I told you, that's my plan. My next one will be August, and then I'll do a winter iteration. I'll be back.
Cool. Well, tell them hi for me. And I hope you stop in.
Thank you, sir. All right. Money, Nathan, and Debs.
Yeah, Scott, just awesome to have you with us. It's my first introduction to your work, and the Bigfoot Mapping Project is super cool. I got a chance to look through that material. So congrats on getting that launched and the continuing developing that you're doing with that. It's much needed, obviously, in this space to bring that kind of analytical and collection approach to the topic. So thanks for what you're doing, and good luck as a new parent with the little one. I know that's not easy at the whole project of its own. So good luck with all of that, and hopefully we get a chance to talk with you again soon.
Thank you so much, Scott, and congratulations again on the baby. And I think it's amazing what you're doing because data is amazing. So thank you very much for contributing that to this realm of anomalous beings and so forth.
My pleasure.
Debs, you're awesome, man. All right, everybody. It's been great. And please, like I said, if you would email me anything that you would like in the show notes, because I just love filling up the show notes with everybody's links and stuff. And I hope to see all of you again as a collective or individually back on Calling All Beings. Give us a like and subscribe. Julie, thank you very much for being the amazing person that you are. And for Amy, for Doug, for Sybilla, Brian, and Scott. And of course, Cabby's Money, Nathan, and Debs. This is DJ saying peace out, one love. We'll see you down the road, and we're always wondering what's up around the bend.